The Natural History Museum. Who remembers going there as a kid? I definitely do. Well, this little video is a little stroll or amble into the Natural History Museum and its artifacts. Get your cup of hot chocolate ready. We're going for a walk through the museum. Muse. So it used to be called the Museum of Natural History, but now it's called the Natural History Museum because it kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit better. There it stands in South Kensington in all of its baked terracotta glory. So yeah, the early history of the Museum of Natural History. It was originally a collection of artefacts which was owned by a guy called Hans Sloane. That's Sir Hans Sloane to a layman like you and me. And the British government basically purchased his collection from him at a knockdown price, apparently. Clearly he didn't need the money. He was a sir at the end of the day. Well, he was a first baronet, apparently. Anyway, Sloane Square was named after him. And Sloane kind of means, well... Anyway, he sold many specimens to the Royal College of Surgeons. When things became too decayed to show off, he had periodic cremations of the specimens in the grounds of the museum. So yeah, he cremated his specimens. Unfortunately, back in those days, the museum had a little bit of a rep for not looking after things very well. And the poor specimens that were housed in the museum just ended up kind of like decaying and dying and, well, falling into non-existence. Mental illness. The keeper of zoology between 1840 and 1874 complained of mental illness amongst staff, but you can kind of imagine how it would work. Say back in those days, you had been appointed a new role at the Natural History Museum and you're a complete nature geek, or you're a scientist or you're a botanist. Imagine how into it you'd be. From day one, you'd feel like you were walking the most sacred halls on the planet. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Imagine being completely obsessed with natural history and biological specimens. Say you'd ploughed your life into it and your life's work and your life's learning during that period of natural history, and then all of a sudden you've got a job. You're appointed a trustee of the most delicate and astounding species and specimens that nobody potentially had ever seen, and they're housed within the walls of your workplace. You work in such a grand old building, a cathedral of nature. Well, more on that later. A very cathedral dedicated to nature. So yeah, one story goes that Dr. George Shaw, mentioned before, threatened to not put his foot on any shell not in the 12th edition of Linnaeus's Systema Naturae. For info, Systema Naturae was one of the best works of Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus, which appeared in English in 1806 with the title A General System of Nature through the three grand kingdoms of animals, vegetables and minerals, systematically divided into their several classes, orders, genera, species and varieties, with other habitations, manners, economy, structure, and peculiarities. Sounds like a catchy name and a simple read. To not put his foot on a shell not in that book. Yeah, he was, maybe a little bit... Another incident of supposed mental illness was one museum worker removing all of the labels and registration numbers from the entomological cases arranged by a rival. Ha! That will teach him. The real loser is the one that had to relabel them. And maybe they'd never know which label or order they had in the first place. Probably just ended up throwing a few in the bin because, let's face it, who was gonna do the research? Lost specimens, lost treasures. And whoa, the reptiles, which made these roaring sounds. And I remember my mum taking me into this big dark room and there was this big robotic T-Rex making these roaring sounds and just moving robotically. I must have only been about 6 and I screamed and I screamed and I screamed and I screamed and I wouldn't stop. So on this, they did a documentary once of what the T-Rex would have actually sounded like. So I don't know if any of you have watched the Jurassic Park series, Jurassic Park 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't even know which one they're up to. But if you listen to the sound of the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, it sounds kind of more like a creature you'd meet on Earth. And actually, the way that they created the sound that the T-Rex was making was actually using the squeal of a baby elephant, the gurgling of an alligator, the growl of a tiger, and the breathing sounds inspired by the whale's blowhole. And actually, when you think about it, you can actually hear it in your head right now. Apparently, and somewhat obviously actually, this sound was not scientifically accurate. I'll actually go into that in a second. But beyond the roar, the footsteps in the film were actually designed to sound very, very big and threatening. And the production team behind Steven Spielberg's masterpiece Jurassic Park used the falling sounds of redwoods in order to recreate the stomps of the T-Rex's feet as they hit the earth. And actually, even now, if you think about it, it's redwoods falling over. I mean, what else could it be? So yeah, even now it evokes that very scene in the film. He left us, he left us, he left us, he left us. But the reality is, on subsequent studies on how the T-Rex was actually supposed to sound, it was actually supposed to be more like a low, deep rumbling sound, like a really, really low, deep rumbling frequency within the earth that would have been used to intimidate or used as a mating call. So yeah, you would have heard it beneath your feet before you could even run! Bloody terrifying, frankly. But have you seen the building? The exterior is actually made of baked terracotta, and there are animals that adorn the facade. They stick out like gargoyles, like statues on a church all around this absolutely beautiful building dedicated to nature and all of its gifts. So it's really nice when I went there recently because I didn't actually have a ticket, so I had to wait in this massive queue. But that was okay because I got to look at the front facade of the building for ages and ages and ages while I waited to get in. I saw a statue of a wolf, I saw a statue of a lion up there, all sorts of different animals. And just sitting along in a row along the front of the building, absolutely beautiful. In this place dedicated to nature, it had to have the animals sitting there watching everybody queuing down below to get in. Major exhibitions. Well, if you've been going to the Natural History Museum for a while now, you might remember Dippy. Well, Dippy was a diplodocus. It was a big cast of a diplodocus that used to sit in the foyer of the Natural History Museum before the present day whale that hangs there now. Dippy is actually considered to be one of the most famous dinosaur skeletons in the world. The actual skeleton is owned by Pittsburgh Carnegie Museum of Natural History, so that's where the original skeleton is. But then they cast the skeleton and then distribute it to various museums across the world. So the cast of this amazing diplodocus skeleton is actually a gift to the Natural History Museum. The pieces got sent to London in 36 crates on the 12th of May 1905. And after 112 years in this museum, the dinosaur replica was actually quite recently, it was removed in early 2017 and replaced by an actual skeleton of a young blue whale, which was a 128-year-old skeleton called Hope. So Hope replaced Dippy. Poor Dippy replaced by a younger model. Well, 128 is pretty young by fossil standards. If you want to take a little bit more of an amble, you can go into the Darwin Centre. So the Darwin Centre is all about preserved specimens. They're preserved in alcohol. So for example, you've got Archie. Why do they all have these kind of cute names? Archie is an 8.62 meter long squid taken alive in a fishing net near the Falkland Islands in 2004. So upon arrival into the museum, the specimen was immediately frozen while preparations commenced for its permanent storage. Poor Archie. So not many complete or fresh specimens of such an ilk are actually in existence today, so wet storage was prescribed for Archie, and the squid was and is undissected. They've preserved the body in a 9.45 meter long tank, which was actually constructed by the same people who constructed the tank for the preserved animals of Damien Hirst's works of art. And please tune into my video coming soon on this very topic. Or at least I've actually got the shark to come on the show and give an interview, which was pretty difficult. But hang on a moment, where did you come from? Good eye, mate. Yeah, sorry, I thought I'd just make a cameo. You look dreadful. Hey, you don't look too good yourself, mate. Oh yeah, the Saatchi Gallery preserved you so badly that you didn't really last too long before starting to decay. Ah, but that's not your business to say. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. I'm gonna go now. Go where? You're a shark preserved in a tank forever. Oh no, now I've hurt your poor little shark feelings. Leave me alone! She's nicknamed Sophie. Sorry to all the Sophies out there. A dodo skeleton. They're obviously extinct, but really cool birds in my opinion. And a skull of a lion that used to live in Britain. So a British lion, no less. But yeah, definitely worth visiting. Natural History Museum is indeed a cathedral to nature. Do not go there and worship at your peril. Have that thirst for knowledge. Go see the things that make up our landscape, make up ourselves, the things that are nature, the things that are natural, the things that are sublime. Enjoy. If you've been or if you have any fond memories, please let me know how it went in the comment section. Mwah, 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 mwah. Thus concludes my missive on the Natural History Museum.